week 3 of the 1995 Intel World Chess Championship, and the game of intellectual karate continues. Neither side is yet able to land a killer blow. The reigning champion for 10 years, Garry Kasparov, was supposed to dominate this match in a wipeout. But the young upstart Viswanathan Anand has been cool under pressure, meeting the champ toe-to-toe. Two mighty giants in the world of chess continue their battle from the top of the world to see who will be king. Hello and welcome to week 3 of the 1995 Intel World Chess Championship.
Hello, I'm Maurice Ashley along with Grandmaster Danny King. Well, the past 2 weeks have seen a record-breaking 8 consecutive draws to begin a World Championship match. And Danny, people are beginning to wonder if these guys are actually afraid of each other.
Yeah, some of the games did give that impression, but make no mistake, at the end of last week, they were really going for each other. They were tough, hard fights. So this week, I'm predicting blood will be spilt.
Well, most experts felt that Anand would be way behind at this stage of the match. Garry Kasparov is famous for his lightning-fast starts. But Danny, Anand has to be feeling pretty good about himself, even with the world champion.
The Indian has played excellently, so I think this week the pressure is all on Kasparov to show his stuff.
And it is in fact a rare event when Kasparov doesn't win a game in 8 consecutive tries, but Anand has managed to hold him to just that, and the score is tied at 4-4. Game 9, Anand arriving to the board, looking to defeat Kasparov for the first time in this match with the white pieces.
So far, Anand hasn't been able to exploit the advantage of the white pieces, but perhaps after this weekend, he'll have prepared something wicked.
And as Anand readied himself, the big question was, where was Garry Kasparov? Arbiter Kao Jarecki checking her watch, wondering where he was, but she had to start the clock. The game scheduled to begin promptly at 3.
Some players actually like to use this tactic of arriving late to distract their opponent. This was a favourite ploy of world champion Bobby Fischer, but normally Kasparov is pretty punctual. So there he goes, he's arrived about a minute and a half late, just steadying himself at the board before making his first move. Anand doesn't seem to be ruffled by Kasparov's late entrance, and the game kicks off.
And we jump ahead to move 12, and the question was, what new wrinkle did Anand have to play today?
They've reached this position before in the previous games in the match, but now bishop to f3 from Anand. That's the first new move, and potentially a much more aggressive one, and Kasparov knows it.
Kasparov leaning back there, a new plan of attack divined by Anand and his camp, looking to blow Kasparov's head off.
Well, the bishop on f3 covers that important pawn on e4, as well as covering the king if white wants to advance on the king side.
So Kasparov continuing with his bishop to d7, and the knight dropping back to b3, and then suddenly knight moving over to a5, an exchange on that square, the queen capturing on a5.
Well, Kasparov realizes how dangerous the situation could be. That's why he's forced these exchanges.
And Anand suddenly massing his pieces on the left half of the board, a bit of a surprising strategy, Danny.
Well, this is amazing. We thought he was going to go for the king, but he's developed an initiative, a very strong initiative, on the left side of the board, on the queen side, and now advancing his pawn, hitting the queen.
And Kasparov returning to the board, his queen under heavy assault, and he needed to deal with this spatial advance that Anand was trying to get a lock on the queen side.
The queen can't take the pawn, it would be trapped, so it has to retreat here.
And Anand continuing the march of his pawns, attacking the bishop and forcing it to go back.
That's a very important move. The black bishop, potentially such a strong piece, looking at Anand's center.
And now Anand massing his forces, his rook sliding over to the b1 square, and Kasparov exchanging, trying to get rid of some of the attacking forces.
Kasparov leaving the booth and going back to his dressing room. He's quite at liberty to do that after he's made his move. Well, there's a rare sight. Neither player actually sitting at the board. Very strange indeed. But Kasparov's concentration doesn't seem that good during the match.
Anand now quickly returning to the board, sensing that his assault is really building, preparing now to go in for the kill, and his knight captured the pawn on b5.
So White's knight is attacking the black queen and the black pawn on d6 in the center of the board. So Kasparov, it seems as though he's forced to exchange off the knight.
But that didn't help as the white queen posted up like Shaquille O'Neal, capturing the bishop on b5, and the space was beginning to grow. Kasparov moving his rook to a8, but then Anand getting more of a lock with the move c4.
White has a tremendous position here. There's the pressure from the queen and rook down on the pawn on b7, and White's central space advantage as well as the two bishops. They're so powerful.
That bishop slicing into the position, attacking black's queen, forcing it to retreat, and Anand exchanging off pawns in the middle of the board.
Well, this increases Anand's advantage because now the rook on d1 controls the only open file in the position.
And Kasparov was feeling the heat now. His queenside a wreck with almost no moves to make, no active plans at all, and he felt for the first time that now he was going to be blown off the board. Anand there sensing that he had the possibility to win his first game.
Well, Kasparov's demeanor says it all. He is worried here. He's in big trouble.
And after a big think, he could do nothing better than retreat his bishop, and Anand slowly advanced with the move pawn to h3.
That's a very good move, taking away a crucial square from Kasparov's knight and giving his king a little more room.
And after queen to e6, Anand played the absolutely spectacular move, rook to d5.
This is a superb move. He's giving up the rook for the knight, but he would get tremendous positional compensation. And Kasparov can't believe it that Anand has given up material. But slowly it dawns on him that this is a stroke of genius.
And Kasparov there feeling the pressure. Anand's pieces swarming over his position. And finally he did capture that rook. But after Anand took back with the pawn, Kasparov was forced to move his queen.
This is a tremendous position for Anand. Those center pawns are just going to roll down the board, pushing away Kasparov's pieces.
Anand feeling it now, the pawns swarming down the board. Anand remaining cool, knowing inside that he had the world champion on the ropes. And Kasparov himself aware of it, trying to act calm, trying to act relaxed, but he knew he was in deep trouble.
No, he's muttering under his breath now. I mean, that's not a sign he feels comfortable.
Well, trying to fight back was the champion. He played the move e4.
Kasparov would love to push that pawn down the board, but the bishop retreats and securely blockades it.
And Kasparov tried to attack Anand's pawn, but queen to d7, a magnificent post-up move.
A brilliant idea. The queen effectively cuts black's position in two. Not only does the queen attack the pawn on b7, but it defends his king as well. Superb.
And Anand defending his kingside as Kasparov trying to do something, now advancing his pawn, but it seemed all in vain as Anand marched his pawn down the board.
Kasparov's thrashing around on the king side, but basically there's nothing he can do in the long term to prevent Anand's pawns from marching home. Once they get to the 8th rank, that'll be the end of the game.
And after that last move, king to h2, both of Kasparov's rooks were under heavy attack, and there was no move for him. He was totally dead, about to lose too much material, and Kasparov, totally red, totally desperate in this position, having no move at all, and the champion sensing defeat. Incredible.
He knows he's lost, and he must be regretting capturing Anand's rook in the middle of the board. It just left the pawns too strong in the center.
And the bear had been caged. Kasparov finally admitting that he was lost, resigning, totally disgusted with himself, now down a point in this match.
As ever, Anand looking totally self-composed, but underneath it all, he must be ecstatic. This is a tremendous upset. He's taken the lead.
It's finally a win. Anand taking the lead 5-4, and afterwards he tried to keep the victory in perspective.
Fishy, 8 consecutive draws, and finally the first win. And I think that if you had asked some people on the street, they might have said, well, we think, Garry will have the first win. Of course, you have the first win. How do you feel after the game?
I feel pretty good. I mean, a win is nice, but that comes after 8 draws, or it comes immediately, or whenever. And it's just good. I mean, nothing more than that. It's still, the match still goes on. But, hey, I'm happy. I mean, I can feel happy for today, and that's about it. There's no need to suddenly change what I'm doing or anything like that.
the true measure of a champion when they're down is that they come back harder than ever. What do you expect from Garry tomorrow?
He's going to come back and try and win some games as well. But, okay, this is what he was doing anyway, so just more of it.
With a couple of days off to prepare and to think about where you would be in the match after 8 draws, are you on target with your game plan? Did you have a long-range game plan over the match?
No, it's not time to take stock or this or that. I'm just playing, that's it. It's not time for reflection. It's just way too early for that.
Well, at the beginning of Game 10, Garry Kasparov was obviously trying to look composed after the devastating loss at the hands of the challenger in Game 9. Game 10.
Having won yesterday, Anand must be feeling pretty good, but this is the moment when he's at his most vulnerable, and Kasparov will be looking to exploit that. He'll want to hit back straight away.
And if we jump ahead to move 13, Anand played the move Queen to D3, all the same as they had played the previous week in Game 6.
It was here that Kasparov in Game 6 played his Knight to F3, offering a Queen exchange, and Anand got a reasonable position. But here, Kasparov came up with the big new move, Bishop to C2, hitting the Queen.
And Anand now forced to consider this new plan, this new wrinkle on this old opening that obviously Kasparov had studied with his seconds at home.
So Anand swipes off this pawn, so he's now a pawn up. But Kasparov has tremendous compensation in the shape of the 2 bishops. They're so powerful.
And Kasparov's last move, Knight to B3, a spectacular move, sacrificing a whole rook.
The problem is, if Anand takes the rook, then his king is so exposed, he could be in terrible trouble.
And Kasparov feeling very cool. He had baited Anand into the trap, and now it was a question if the young Indian could get out of this position.
Well, he's moved his knight into the center. What he's trying to do is he's going to grab one of those bishops and hope to exchange pieces and ease the attack, but very difficult indeed.
And Kasparov leaping up with his queen, clouds gathering around the black king, and Anand accepted the rook.
Well, normally, if you go a rook down in chess, that's it. You're going to lose the game. But here, Kasparov has tremendous compensation. Anand's king is so exposed, he could get checkmated at any moment. And Kasparov has crashed in. There we see the move again. Bishop takes e6. He's not hesitating over his moves at all.
And continuing the magnificent aggressive play was Kasparov sacrificing a bishop, and Anand felt the avalanche.
Well, that's a brilliant move. Not only is Anand's queen in the corner threatened, but there's a threat to the pawn on g7 too, smashing through to his king.
So Anand moving his queen, but the bishop ripping off the pawn on g7.
And now Kasparov's queen ready to enter into the game. Anand trying to defend with his queen.
And that threw the champion a bit off guard. That queen leaping back into the game, and Kasparov had to rethink his strategy. He still had a better position, but could he really win as easily as he wanted to?
Well, up to this moment, Kasparov had spent just 5 minutes over the first 20 moves, and Anand about an hour. But it was here that Kasparov really had to knuckle down and find the correct way through.
And he plowed on, exchanging off pieces. The queen's leaving the board, the bishop now capturing the queen, and Anand taking back on e7 with his king.
Okay, so we've reached an endgame where Kasparov, playing white, has a rook and a bishop against Anand, rook and a knight. But Kasparov has an extra pawn, and that should be enough to bring him the victory.
And pushing his pawns down the board was Kasparov, his pawn leaping up to f4, and Anand trying to make the most of it on the other side, pushing his pawns.
If Kasparov can force his pawns home using the rook and the bishop, that'll be good enough for victory. But in the meantime, he must be very careful. Anand has very dangerous counterplay with his own pawns.
And Anand trying to rush those pawns down the board, but Kasparov played the spectacular defensive move, bishop to d1.
This is a great move. Not only does it prevent Anand's pawns from marching down the board, but it also leaves the way clear for his kingside pawns to march up the board.
Anand feeling the pressure, trying to make the most of it, advancing his pawn to a3.
But now Kasparov is in control. There you go, the pawn advancing on the right side of the board, and Anand can do nothing to prevent them going down.
Those 3 pawns abreast looking very powerful. Kasparov bringing his rook up, and then his king march to the middle of the board, attacking a rook.
So the rook has to retreat, and now Kasparov has taken a second pawn. It's surely all over now.
And Anand in big trouble. Kasparov's pieces posted up in the middle of the board, and Kasparov going ahead, advancing his pawn. Anand trying to check.
King retreats, but now the knight's attacked. And Kasparov can simply keep pushing the pawns. There's nothing that Anand can do.
And that last move, rook to d6, creating a vice on the position. 3 pawns, totally devastating, and there was no point in continuing the massacre, so Anand decided to resign, and Kasparov had scored his first victory in the match.
This was vintage Kasparov. He went for Anand's king from the word go.
With the score tied, Kasparov summed up his feelings about the match.
You spent 2 minutes over the first 20 moves. How long did it take you to prepare it?
48 hours, almost 2 days, a whole weekend. It's very complicated. It's one of the pure line when you could afford to sacrifice a rook and to play without concrete threats, visible threats. But White had a very strong attack, and I was hoping that today, first time, Anand would give me a chance to break through.
Okay, tell us how you were feeling after last night. How did you restore yourself?
I had a great idea. One of the problems of yesterday was that I couldn't wait to play with White. I found this idea, and probably the beauty of this idea and the whole, the greatness of the combination, affected my chess feelings. I mean, it hurted when I had to probably just to go to quite a passive defense, and I played quite awfully in the opening, and then had a big advantage, and he played very well, increased it, and at the end I just committed suicide. I took on d5. He played rook d5, which was a good move. But I was not obliged to take the rook. I mean, I could do whatever I wanted, rook c8, and he still had to provide a plan.
Okay, but last night, how did you actually restore yourself, restore your spirit?
I survived the night after game 23 in Seville, and still, it's a long match to go. I didn't like it very much, but I was not in panic. That was very important. And I just spent time making sure that this sacrifice will work.
Okay, have you got your confidence back now?
Still, it's just a 5-5. This game helps me to restore the confidence, but I still have to solve many problems. And Vichy is well prepared, and it's not easy to invent all ideas like that in every game.
And a jubilant Kasparov talking to the crowd, obviously happy about the win.
Which I want Vichy to maintain a substantial positional advantage. I mean, I played it very, very poorly. And yeah, it did, yes. I just took on d5, which was a complete, suicidal, act of suicidal. Still, I could hold the position by just, standing and waiting for him to show the plan.
Yep.
Just think H1, rook c8 for the best bet. Just show the plan, it's up to him. And today, okay, I had my revenge, and I hoped very much that he would go for this line. I was right, and again, unfortunately, I can't answer many questions.
How do you feel now? What's the tenor of the match? Is the momentum turned around after Anand winning such a good game finally against you, and now you winning? It's
in fact, in my interview to Russian television last Friday, I predicted that this week would be very different. Yeah, and I wish I could say so. When you have 8 draws, and it's so much work, it's just behind the curtains, everybody's working hard at home, trying to prepare new ideas, and it was just a triumph of defense for a while. But this tension, should be broken one day, because it burst into the action, and that's why, as the inexperienced match player, I was very nervous because this week I expected it would be a bloody one, and I think the match will never come back to that stage, main draws, because we're all human beings, and there will be probably more mistakes, and I think that's the last game we have to play. More tension will create more excitement for public.
wow, so it's going to get better, and we'd like to thank world champion Garry Kasparov. We'll be on the watch for more and we'd like to thank you for joining us on another win, and we're going to expect more of that. This is going to be juicy, so I expect to see you again. Next game is on Thursday. Have a safe trip home, everybody.
Back in busy New York, where the New York Commodities Exchange is located right here in the World Trade Center.
Well, in the basement of the World Trade, they're buying and selling commodities, while upstairs at the 107th floor, Kasparov and Anand are trading pieces and blows, and even trading games in the last couple of days.
Jump now to game 11. Anand with the white pieces, Kasparov with the black pieces, and Anand needing to steady himself after losing such a devastating game in game 10.
That was a really tough defeat, but he has had a day to try and pick himself up. And now, with the white pieces, with the advantage of the first move, he can hope to get something from this game.
Will Kasparov feeling his confidence, playing his traditional Sicilian defense with c5, and Anand responding with the move knight to f3. This is what they've been playing before, and now Kasparov continuing the same with d6.
Well, I mean, this is a little bit risky of Kasparov to repeat his exact same opening from Monday, the game he lost. So, is he going to improve? What's he got in mind?
Well, Anand now getting ready to take the pawn. He takes the pawn in the middle of the board, and they are indeed continuing the dance as Anand plays, looking for some aggressive possibilities here with the white pieces. Kasparov bringing his knight out, attacking the pawn in the middle of the board.
Okay, so Anand just bringing his knight out, defending the pawn, absolutely normal. Now, in all the other games in the match so far, he's played his Najdorf variation.
And look at this, Kasparov playing a dragon variation. What a spectacular change from what he's played before.
Well, that is, as I was just saying, he normally always plays the Najdorf, but here he's played the so-called dragon variation. He's bringing his bishop out onto this long diagonal. This is such a sharp opening. You know, Anand cannot have been prepared for this.
If we jump 10 moves ahead, we see that Anand did not play aggressively against this variation, deciding not to go into a Kasparov trap.
Well, Kasparov seems to have done pretty well out of the opening. He's developing a powerful initiative against Anand's king on the left side of the board. He's got his queen there, his rook there, his pawn is ready to push up. This is, it's looking a bit dodgy for white.
And now Anand trying to bring his knight into the action. Kasparov with a double-barrel rook action down the c-line. So Anand moved his knight into the center of the board, offering the exchange of queens.
Okay, this is a good decision from Anand. I think he had to go for exchanges because he was just getting under a heavy attack.
Well, now taking the knight in the middle of the board was Anand. Kasparov dropping his king back, and it seemed after bringing his rook to the center that Anand had solved most of his problems.
Well, in fact, Kasparov offered Anand a draw, and Anand declined it. He didn't accept it. He wanted to play on and try and squeeze something from this position.
Well, the back and forth motion going on, Anand's king stepping up to b2, and Kasparov charging on the left with his pawn, and then bringing his king over to the g7 square.
But Anand's trying to find a way through into Kasparov's position. He has a slight advantage here. His knight in the center of the board, looking pretty powerful.
But now Anand played aggressively with the move b4, and after rook c4, it seemed as if Kasparov was blundering away an exchange.
Well, it would be surprising if Kasparov did give up rook for knight, but Anand thought it was safe to take it.
And now Anand, after a bit of hesitation, played knight to b6, and he was attacking both rooks. Kasparov, rook takes pawn check, king moving up to a3, and then Kasparov played this spectacular move, rook takes c2.
If the rook is taken, the black rook comes down to b3 check. The king must move back, and then there's a horrible discovered check. The bishop checks the king, and then the black rook takes the white rook. Black is left 2 pawns up and has a winning endgame.
A shocking mistake by Anand. He resigned in disgust, and afterwards the champion was feeling pretty confident.
Did you opt for a draw after queen takes d2?
Yeah, I was satisfied with winning the opening duel. If white doesn't play g4 in the dragon, you can't expect much. And surprisingly, Anand showed will to fight in this position. I mean, if you want to play, you have to play g4 at one point. And my evaluation I think was correct. The position is dead draw.
Is it the first time you played the dragon?
I played a few times in the simultaneous games, but if I remember correctly, I never played the pure dragon in the serious tournament game.
Is it the first time it's been played in a World Championship?
No, I think Botvinnik played a few times against Mislov in the 50s. There was not much theory at that time, as you can imagine. I mean, if you can see the Karpov-Korchnoi in '74, the World Championship match, then Korchnoi played and lost badly, and I don't think it was adopted in recent times, not only in the World Championship matches, but I also don't think it was used in the candidate matches.
Are you really back in business?
I like my situation to be much better than a few days ago.
Were you surprised when he refused the offer for a draw and continued playing?
It happened sometime, you know, but it reminded me game 47 in the first match against Karpov when I also offered draw in the deadly equal end game. Karpov turned down the offer and I won the game. You know, it gave me a very good memory and it reminded me about such good moments, and that's why, you know, playing this end game I was always looking for a little trick, and eventually I found it, and I was surprised that Anand followed without much thinking.
What did Vishy say after the match?
Okay, he just what he could say, you know, I think he could even save the game after a bad move before if he took on e7. I mean, white was worse, but I mean, I don't know. You have to ask him. Definitely he was not happy.
Did he think you had blundered, perhaps?
I have very little doubt. You know, fortunately for me, black could save an exchange. I mean, to sacrifice an exchange. That's why Vishy, you know, thought probably for a while that I would play. I would try to save the endgame without an exchange, which probably also draw. But you know, I saw this little trick a few moves ago, and I was hoping very much that he would fall for it. Again, black could save the position without playing king g7, but king g7 was, you know, king g7 in fact is quite a risky move because he could take on e7, and then black makes draw by a very precise move order. After knight takes e7 instead of b4, I play rook e8, knight d5, bishop takes d5, b4, 8 takes b4, 8 takes b4, rook c4, rook takes d5. Now rook c8, ec8 is a very important move, attacking pawn on c2, rook e2, rook takes b4 check, king c1,
okay,
rook c6.
we'll show you
Writing all this
d2,
down.
And now looks at black is losing the pawn on d6. When I play rook a6,
He's not done yet.
A1, king d1, rook b1 check, king e2, rook b2, and he cannot improve the position
still
because the
going.
pawn on c2 is also hanging. I mean, I saw this line. It's a long line, but it's very easy to calculate. And I
Very easy
felt
to
I didn't have
calculate,
any
he
risk,
said.
and why not to play for a little trick? And also, I think Vishy, after 5 previous games with white, he probably lost. He was not so careful, you know. He just used to play with his king on h1, bishops on f3, e3, and suddenly his king was a little bit exposed, and probably it was a nervous occasion.
Vishy was possibly not careful today. Do you think it was because you surprised him with a new variation?
Obviously, when you change your opening so dramatically, it surprised your opponent, especially because, you know, you have to play a different position now. You try to, in this classical Scheveningen, you play with king on h1, as I said, 2 good bishops, solid position. You try here and there, and maybe you can succeed. I mean, black has to struggle for a draw. I mean, it's not that dangerous, but again, black is passive. Here in the dragon, you know, you have to play g4 and sacrifice the material. Otherwise, you should go to an equal endgame. And I'm sure this dramatic change of style of the game was not a very pleasant event for Vishy in the opening.
How good is this situation for you now?
Still very complicated, but you know, now I'm much better position, and I hope that, you know, I seize the initiative, and it was very important for me, not just, you know, to equalize after game 9, but also to fight the tendency which was not very pleasant. And I think these 2 games changed not only the score, which is of course number 1 importance, but it also changed the course of the event. And I am very pleased with the situation now. But still, it's 9 games to go, and I'm sure you will see a lot of interesting things happening.
Welcome back to the 1995 Intel World Chess Championship, where the last few games have produced a flurry of action.
Garry Kasparov, the world champion, starting to gain control of this match. He's really asserting himself now with 2 victories. Can Anand get back into it? That's the question.
Game 12, Kasparov with the white pieces, Anand with the black pieces, and after losing 2 consecutive games, Anand really had his work cut out for him against Kasparov.
This is a critical game for both players. If Kasparov can win this game, he'll have a 2-point lead and really fantastic chances to retain his title. For Anand, he's got to stay in this match. He's got to hold this game.
So Kasparov beginning with the aggressive move, pawn to e4, Anand responding with e5, but after his stunning loss 2 games ago, one has to be wondering what he had planned for today.
If he can improve on the 10th game, it would be a shocker, because Kasparov's opening preparation was just superb.
And a very confident Kasparov, knowing that he could knock him out and looking definitely to try and win this game. So playing the move bishop to b5, being very aggressive. Anand responding with the move a6, and Kasparov playing the bishop back to a4.
So this is the so-called Spanish opening, over 4 centuries old, but still very current in tournament practice. Anand repeating the moves from game 10.
Playing knight to f6, Kasparov hesitating for but a moment, and then castling with his king. And in game 10, Anand played knight takes e4, the open rear Lopez, but here he played the move b5.
So how was Kasparov going to cope with this new idea?
Well, Danny, he managed to handle it pretty well.
And here in this position, Kasparov has very aggressively posted rooks. Look at that rook on b7, hitting the black pawn. So Kasparov has some initiative in this endgame.
And Kasparov feeling that he could knock Anand out, and he played the aggressive move, pawn to d5.
So the pawn advancing, attacking the black knight. So Kasparov wants to hit the knight, move it out the way, and then he can make progress with his rooks.
Cranking up the pressure was Kasparov, and Anand needing all his defensive skills in this position.
So Anand's just captured a pawn. Kasparov naturally recaptures, attacking the knight. Now, if the knight moves, the rooks can come in and attack the pawns.
And Anand played an unbelievable move, pawn to g4, leaving his knight hanging on c6.
Well, this is a brilliant idea. Instead of going passive, he's seeking to counterattack by attacking Kasparov's knight.
Well, Kasparov surprised by the move, but he handled it fairly well, and a couple of moves later, he came up with an inspired sacrifice, capturing the pawn on c7.
Well, this is a brilliant idea. He's giving away a rook, but what he's trying to do is force that far advanced pawn home. He's trying to force it down to the queening square, get a new queen.
And rook to b8 check, forcing Anand to move his king up to f7, and then the rook coming back to b7, attacking black's rook.
Now, if the rook captures, then the pawn will go through. But Anand finds an accurate defense.
Kasparov trying to get a queen, that pawn looking to score a touchdown, but Anand quickly snuffed that out by sacrificing back his rook.
Well, what has happened here is we've just had a simplification of the position. Both sides have a rook and 3 pawns each, so it looks as though Anand can hold the position.
But Kasparov playing the move rook to a7, attacking that pawn, and Kasparov was feeling very confident about his chances.
But over the next couple of moves, Anand defended very accurately indeed. Both sides have a passed pawn. There we go, Anand pushing it down the board. And this is enough to distract Kasparov, and after a trade of pawns, the position will be balanced.
Well, with so few pieces on the board, the draw was inevitable. Anand had stopped the runaway Kasparov train, but he was still a point down in the match. And we asked Kasparov what effect that would have on Anand's strategy over the next 8 games, especially with a couple of days off to clear his head.
I think it will force him to change the strategy and to play more aggressively, because he has nothing to lose now, and I'm sure it will bring more excitement to the match.
What did he say after the game?
He said he had missed e4 check. Well, I could tell from his score sheet also, so because he had already written gf3 on his score sheet. So.
Was allowing rook b7 a little dangerous for black?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the ending is unpleasant anyway. I have to make some concession of the other. So. I mean, his rook didn't really move from b7, but it's an unpleasant endgame.
What were your assessments of the endgame?
Well, I thought I could play on, and yeah, I played on.
How do you feel about the match situation now?
Yeah, it's not brilliant. It was better a couple of days ago, but.
Are you happy with the way the week has ended after Tuesday's and Thursday's games?
No, obviously not. I mean, I much prefer to draw both these games, but okay, it happens.
Were you happy to sort of survive today and better to fight for another day?
Well, going for the hat-trick was certainly not a very pleasant option, that's for sure. So, I mean, I don't think it would have been very wise.
Did you think that Kasparov had blundered yesterday?
I thought he could. I thought it was a choice between going for a rook ending, or going for the thing and exchange up, and I just missed rook c2. This was the problem. I thought, well, even the exchange up, I'm not clear. It's not clear that white's winning. It's just white can bottle on, and I thought that was what I was going for.
Are you going to play aggressively in the remaining games?
No, I'm going to sleep now. I don't know what I'm going to do on Monday. So.
The surprises that Garry came out with in Tuesday's and Thursday's game, were you surprised?
Well, without being too long-winded, it's clear that yesterday I should not lose anyway. So it takes some effort to lose this, and because normally speaking, I could just make a draw anytime I wanted. So.
Well, to recap the week's action, Anand won in Game 9, but Kasparov came roaring back in Games 10 and 11. An exciting draw in Game 12. Danny, I gotta feel as if the momentum has shifted in Kasparov's favor.
It has, but it's extraordinary how this has turned around because, you know, after Anand won that Game 9, you know, we all thought that Kasparov was down and out. He looked so restless, so badly concentrated, and yet somehow he managed to come back with the most incredible victory in Game 10.
You gotta wonder if a loss was actually really good for him.
Maybe that was the catalyst. Maybe that was the boost that he needed to hit right back very hard.
Hit back he did. How is Anand gonna bounce back now, down a point in the match against the world champion?
It's going to be very tough indeed. But he still seems pretty composed, and I think the draw in the last game of the week will give him a lot of self-confidence.
Well, 3 wins in 4 days. Can we expect more fireworks like this?
Well, I think so, because Anand must go for the win. He's behind with only 8 games left, so things are pretty tight.
Speed chess, lightning fast hands, and intense action can be seen every day at Washington Square Park in New York City. Only a few minutes away, 2 towering giants in the world of chess, world champion Garry Kasparov and challenger Viswanathan Anand, are locked in classic chess combat for $1 million prize. Neither side dares to blink for even a second, knowing that the first mistake could seal their doom. Welcome to New York City, site of the 1995 Intel World Chess Championship. Hello, I'm Maurice Ashley along with Grandmaster Danny King. Well, in a match that saw a record-breaking 8 consecutive draws to begin a World Championship, Danny, the games have really exploded.
It's been extraordinary. First of all, Anand took the lead. He outplayed the world champion in a beautiful game. But then Kasparov hit back with 2 straight wins. And at the end of 12 games, this match is wide open. Only 1 point separates the players.
Well, a point well taken, but in Game 11, Anand blundered horribly. And Danny, you got to wonder if he's going to be able to come back from such a devastating shock.
It's going to be tough. In a position where there was no real pressure on Anand, he made a horrible blunder. So we'll have to see how that affects his confidence this week.
Well, on the 107th floor of the World Trade Center, it was standing room only. The crowd set for Game 13. The players entering the booth and taking their places.
Well, Kasparov a little bit amused here because the king and queen were actually set up the wrong way round.
And Kasparov adjusting the two pieces there as Arbiter Cal Jarecki looks on. Anand with the white pieces, Kasparov with the black pieces, and Anand needing to win to recover from last week's devastating loss.
Okay, so he's 1 point down, and last week, well, what swings in fortune we saw there. Anand took the lead, and then Kasparov hit straight back with 2 wins.
Well, at least Anand was able to stop the blood flow by drawing game 12.
Yeah, that was very important for him. So he's regained some of his confidence, but I tell you, in that final game of last week, both players looked so tired. They looked punch drunk. Anything could happen this week.
Well, Anand starting off the game with his favorite move, his pawn to e4. He was able to win with this last week, Danny, but Kasparov surprised him by playing the dragon defense.
Yeah, game 11 last week was such a shocker for Anand. He had to face the dragon variation of the Sicilian. Incredibly sharp. Kasparov was obviously so well prepared, and Anand came unstuck and made a horrible blunder.
And wondering now if Kasparov will play the same variation. Kasparov known to be a tremendous theoretician, but the dragon was not in his repertoire, and he stunned Anand last week by playing it.
Well, at least Anand has had the weekend to prepare for this game, so what has he got lined up?
And so far, the players repeating the exact same moves from that faded game, game 11 last week, and Kasparov just keeping his cool, continuing the dance, knight out to f6, attacking the pawn on e4, Anand responding with knight to c3.
Well, this is the critical point. Will Kasparov play his old favorite, the Najdorf variation, or go for this new, sharp, aggressive system, the dragon? And he's done it again. He's played the dragon.
Well, Danny, you've got to be impressed by the fact that this guy is playing on this level, an opening that he's never played before. I mean, this is $1 million match, and he's throwing out something that he simply can't be as used to as his old favorite Najdorf.
That's right. This is a brave decision for Kasparov. He knows if he can win this game, well, he'll have a tremendous chance of taking the championship again.
Well, Anand, after blundering in game 11, has now played a different variation. We jump ahead down to move 12, and Anand playing a quite different setup, something that he has prepared. He had to wonder where the bomb was going to fall, and he played this new move, knight captures on c6.
Well, this is pretty irregular stuff, and Kasparov must be wondering if he's falling into a trap.
Well, not only that, Danny, he hardly ever plays this opening, so will he be able to solve the problems?
And in this position, Kasparov spent quite a lot of time just thinking everything through. It's not easy, but he managed to come up with a great strategy.
Well, if we jump ahead to move 20, we see Kasparov there rocking back and forth in his chair, sensing that he had dealt with the problem successfully, and then he came up with the magnificent move, pawn to c4, sacrificing a pawn.
Well, you saw Kasparov just glancing up there at Anand as if to say, well, okay, matey, what you got against that? Anand under incredible pressure now. His king is trapped in the middle of the board. That's the worst place for it to be. Compare it with Kasparov's king, safely behind 3 pawns. There we go, Anand's king, it would love to castle, but the black queen on b6 cutting down, preventing it from castling. Not only that, the center is exploding, ready for Kasparov to storm through against the king.
That was a huge move, but a few moves later, Kasparov played an even more spectacular move, knight to e4.
Well, that knight, of course, can be taken by the pawn. There's also Kasparov's rook that can be taken by a bishop, but the world champion thinks he's got it all worked out.
And Anand sat there realizing that this was just too much of a body blow, and the more he analyzed, the more he realized that he was just dead. So when Kasparov returned to the room, he resigned to give Kasparov a 2-game lead in the match.
Well, let's just take a look at exactly why Anand did resign this position. The black knight has come into the center of the board, not only attacking white's queen, but threatening a checkmate on the g3 square. So that knight in the center must be taken. There we go. But this leaves the way open for black's rooks to crash through. The rook comes to f6, checking the white king. The only safe square that the king has is the e1 square, only square. But now, the next black rook comes crashing through, checking the white king. And not only that, attacking the bishop on c4. White's king caught in the middle of the board, just runs over there to the d1 square, but now rook takes bishop. A very simple move, which just leaves white's king wide open. The threat is rook to d6, winning white's queen. King c2, practically the only move. And now the next rook comes down, attacking white's queen. The white queen can't take the rook because it's defended by the black queen, and therefore white's queen is lost. It can't move away because the king is in check. A deadly attack from Kasparov.
So after going down a point in the match, Kasparov roared back, scoring 3 wins in 4 games to take a commanding 7.5 to 5.5 lead into game 14. With the dragon responsible for 2 straight wins with the black pieces, we asked Kasparov what effect this fire-breathing variation had on his opponent.
I'm sure it's a very unpleasant surprise, and now it's time for him to show the character.
Here in New York City, there was plenty of chess action taking place out in the streets, as well as 107 floors up at the top of the World Trade Center. Well, game 14, Kasparov with the white pieces, Anand with the black pieces. And the question was, Danny, was Anand going to be able to come back from a devastating crush in the previous game 13?
It's going to be very tough. He's 2 points down, but he still has enough time to fight back. So this game is crucial.
A critical game for Anand, and the game has begun. Kasparov getting his bearings, having a devastating advantage in the match, and now playing his move, pawn to e4.
Well, so far in the match, Anand has had real problems facing this move. His favorite opening, the open Spanish, has really been refuted by Kasparov. So we see here, he's going in a completely different direction. He's played the so-called center counter defense, and Kasparov, that telltale sign, he's taken off his watch, and that means he's confused.
But capturing on d5 was Kasparov. It turns out that Kasparov had never played this opening in his life. So Anand has found a weakness in Kasparov's play, and it was shown here. Kasparov playing some strange moves, and when we flash ahead, you see Kasparov play this move f4, Danny.
Well, this is ultra aggressive, but in this position, I don't know if it's really in place, because it's not easy for white to break through. And if he doesn't, then this structure looks rigid. White's pieces are blocked behind these pawns, so I don't know. That looks like a very strange move to me.
Well, this f4 move, Kasparov played it confidently, but it really did not look so attractive. If you look at this move, it seems to block all of white's pieces in.
Yeah, in particular, note the bishop on c1, blocked in by the pawn. But also, white's king could be rather weak. Those pawns create a vacuum. And so this is quite a pleasant move for Anand to meet.
Well, Kasparov continued playing some extremely bizarre moves. It looks as if he was very uncomfortable, and in this position, he played the move bishop to c4. A very strange move in this position, Danny.
Well, okay, the knight and the bishop attacking the pawn on f7, but Anand dealt with this very easily. There you go, he's just moved his pawn up, blocking the attack of the bishop. And then, well, Kasparov retreated the bishop. He found that he could make no headway with his attack.
Well, then Anand played the move h5, and Kasparov played another bishop move, bishop to e3, and that still didn't look very strong, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, note that bishop is actually blocked in by white's pawns, and I liked Anand's last pawn move. That's a great idea, securing the bishop on this f5 square. So Anand has blocked these center pawns, and Kasparov's attack is getting nowhere.
And then the bishop going back to g1, an ugly square for the world champion. Anand castling, and it really looked as if black was in control of this position.
Yeah, although white has a space advantage, he can't really do anything with it. The pawns are really rigid, and Anand has excellent play with this rook in the center of the board against the center.
So Anand now in control of the position, and then he played a big move, knight into d5, centralizing his knight onto a strong square, attacking Kasparov. If we look at it here on the graphics, the knight hopping off the f6 square and jumping in to d5.
The knight on a great square in the center of the board. It's hitting white's knight on c3, as well as the white pawn on f4, so Kasparov had to exchange.
And he offered a draw on that move, but Anand rejected it and captured back on d5.
Kasparov obviously dissatisfied with his position, and Anand knows he has some advantage here. His piece is very well centralized indeed.
Garry Kasparov under heavy pressure as the challenger Viswanathan Anand has completely outplayed him from the opening moves.
This is an extraordinary turn of events because Kasparov only loses one game in 25 with the white pieces. So Anand has a great chance to cause an upset.
A win would bring him right back in the match, and he's got the position to do it.
Although White's knight in the center of the board looks very powerful indeed. In fact, this can be kicked by Black's pawn, and it's the center square, e4, which Black is looking to control, which gives him the advantage.
And that last move, f6, chasing the knight out the middle of the board, Kasparov forced to retreat, and he is not happy. And if we jump ahead, we see that he's taken the jacket off, and he is fighting back like a world champion, trying to gain some space on the left side of the board. And then he played a spectacular move, sacrificing his knight to e5.
Well, this was brilliant. He knows that if he stays passive, he's just going to lose control of the game. So he's fighting. Knight comes to e5. It can be taken by the black pawn, but then all hell breaks loose in the position. The bishop takes the rook. The rook's line to the black queen is opened up. Well, just total confusion.
And a mad position had broken out on the chessboard, and both players with very little time on the clock to think about their moves. Anand feeling as if the game had turned against him, and he just ignored the knight and played the move queen to e6.
Well, at first sight, this looked like such a powerful move, just ignoring all these tactics, trying to keep his strategic positional control over the position. But it was here that Kasparov found an incredible move to keep the tactics going.
And Kasparov, with his pieces all busy, played an amazing move, g4, splitting his king side wide open.
What Kasparov is trying to do is break through to Black's weak pawns in front of his king. But the big problem is he exposes his own king, so this is a really double-edged strategy.
Well, after capturing on g4, Kasparov was assaulting the pawn on f6, a very aggressive attack, so Anand had to defend, and then Kasparov played a thunderous move, his rook crashing in on the 7th rank, attacking a pawn.
Well, this is superb. Not only attacking a pawn, but hitting the bishop next to Anand's king, so all hell is breaking loose.
With pandemonium on the chessboard, and if we flash ahead to Black's 32nd move, Anand was trying to keep his control of the position, and then he played an amazing move, pawn up to g5.
Well, this was extraordinary, because just when you thought, well, he had to defend, but he's attacking with his pawn, but that's such a risky move because he's exposing his king. The situation completely unclear now. If one of the bishops is taken, then White's rook crashes down in front of Anand's king. But now this last move, bishop to g4 from Kasparov, an excellent move, exchanging off Anand's powerful attacking bishop. And it seems as though Kasparov is beginning to get control. His queen coming out there, offering exchanges.
And Anand did exchange, and Kasparov captured back with his rook. Rook taking the queen there, and Kasparov looked as if he had weathered the worst.
Well, indeed, it looks pretty good for White now. That rook on c7 in a beautiful position, hitting the pawn on a7.
And Kasparov bringing his bishop back to f2, and Anand, having lost control of the game, now bringing his knight over to b5, attacking the rook, but the rook just moved over to b7.
Yeah, that rook maintaining its aggressive post, hitting the black pawn on a7. Anand trying to counterattack in the center with his rook, but now Kasparov came up with a great move. He pushed the pawn forward, just letting his rook cover laterally. That's a great idea.
And now Anand, feeling that he had completely thrown the game away, started moving very quickly, exchanging off on g4, and then hesitating for just a heartbeat before bringing his rook to the open line, playing the rook to c8.
Anand with about 2.5 minutes left to make his last few moves to the time control, so this is not easy. He's down on time.
And Kasparov with a huge move, rook to d7, attacking the pawn on d5.
Well, Anand trying to counterattack with his rook, but it's no good at all. Kasparov just taking that pawn. He's now a clear pawn up. He's hitting the knight, and this is a winning position.
Anand, thoroughly disgusted with himself, resigned on the spot. Later, Kasparov said he could win this position in his sleep. Well, that second straight win gave him a 3-point advantage. The score now standing at 8.5 to 5.5.
What would you have played if you would have accepted his knight sacrifice?
I definitely would take on e5, but I didn't have, believe me, I didn't have a clear idea what I'm supposed to do. I think that the best, maybe the best chance was to take on e5, take on d8, and to play g4. And I think after check on f2, I mean, I can take on g6. I mean, that was my own, knight e5 is not a move of,
great inspiration. That's I can improve the position. Also, I could get some active counterplay, and I had some serious doubts that he would take the knight because he wanted to keep position safe and to continue to press my position without any risk. And I think Queen E6 is a very, very serious mistake because suddenly after G4, I mean, White is not worse, because all these segments of my position, pawn on A6, rook on C1, that did not work. I mean, suddenly they all went in place. I mean, all my pieces, just they were better than his pieces. And the only weakness on E4 was more than compensated by weakness on F6, G6, potential weakness on A7. I mean, I had my quality of my pieces so dramatically improved after G4 that, I mean, we both were under the impression that White had to defend the position. It would be a long, long defense, maybe successful, maybe not. And then when I played G4, I took on G4 with a knight. I mean, I looked at the position, and then I looked at Vishy, and he also looked at me, and we both realized that that was a turning point. He lost track, and instead of having comfortable position with advantage, he had to struggle with so many threats that came from all white pieces. And I don't know. I think that maybe it's very hard to say. I think maybe knight E4 instead of bishop G7 was better. I mean, knight E4, knight E3, knight G3 check. Maybe that was a possibility. I mean, I don't know. It was very difficult even for me to calculate. I realized I'm not worse. I realized that if I'll not blunder anything, just like mate on F2, I'm not going to lose the game. And for me, it was the most important discovery, because I went to this game having very strange feelings. I wanted to win, but at the same time I wanted to have to play quiet, because I learned, I knew that any draw is in fact in my favor, and this troubled mind played a very negative role in the opening, because I played so poorly, that it's at move 15, Black had a substantial position advantage, and I think that knight d5 instead of knight d5, c5 was probably even stronger. I mean, that was as I was most afraid. After knight d5, Black is also better, but White had some chances to struggle. There is an element of unfairness sometimes in chess, because I don't think he deserved to lose today, but you can't judge whether there is the sadism or whatever. It's chess is the very tough psychological warfare, and it's, as in any warfare, you have winners, you have losers, and to lose even after the good battle, that's an element of whatever it is now, and it's extremely tough for psychology of the player, because you are on your own, and you can't blame anybody when you lost a very tough game in the time trouble, because I mean, it's up to you to make a decision. It's up to you to take all the consequences. In fact, I think he is playing much better than he showed in this match. I have some feelings that he was over-prepared, and he is a great player. I mean, he has great intuition, and probably he had too much of knowledge, probably his coaches wanted him to stick too much for strategy. And that's why probably they narrowed the field where he can operate, and probably it killed some of his inspiration, which he was very dangerous with. And I think that the first 8 games of the match proved for me that Anand was not playing kind of chess I expected, and I think he was more dangerous. And he's playing the chess that he would have great difficulties to escape and to come back to his normal kind of game. I think this is a purely, again, very hard to judge, but it's a very serious, in my opinion, mistake of someone who is in charge of, let's say, ideology in Anand's team. I think that the people that made the selection of the strategy, they did it too much for me, ignoring the qualities of Anand that, in my opinion, cannot be shown, by adopting this strategy.
That's the last question. Was he playing more like Karpov?
Yes, I think that the strategy looks very much familiar with what Karpov did, but for Karpov was absolutely natural. This is you know, when you play the World Championship match, after all, you know, just forget about the preparation, forget about, you know, the teams that fill you with all ideas. It comes back to your, you know, to your natural strengths. And I think that Anand is missing some of the most important components of his natural strengths. And, you know, the first 8 games, as I said, has proved for me that he was, in my opinion, misled by just, you know, choosing this track.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the World Trade Center, where those who were unable to make the games live were able to follow them over the internet. The games being broadcast online to chess fans, while the players were set for the next game, and Anand down 3 points. And the question was he going to be able to stop the skid? Kasparov felt that there were some problems with how Anand approached this match from the very start. Well, game 15, Anand with the white pieces, Kasparov with the black pieces, and Danny, could Anand really be in the mood to fight today?
Well, it's going to be very tough indeed. He's just suffered 2 straight losses, and so his confidence must be at rock bottom.
Well, still playing his favorite move, pawn to e4, and Kasparov responding with the Sicilian defense, and you just had to figure that Kasparov was going to test him again in that dragon variation.
Well, Anand has had a day off to recuperate, so perhaps he's got something prepared.
Well, Anand not looking particularly excited about this game. He's going to have to get up off his high horse and play some moves, and he's played the move d4, very standard. Kasparov giving him a look there and exchanging the pawns on d4. Anand capturing back with the knight.
My goodness, I wouldn't want to be in the glare of Kasparov. He looks pretty ferocious when he's in that kind of mood.
And looking very confident is Kasparov. He's won 2 games in a row, and a packed audience wondering if Anand was going to be able to slow down this Kasparov train.
Well, this is the critical position. Anand just bringing his knight out to defend the pawn in the center of the board. Now, will Kasparov once again play the dragon variation? Well, he's just giving a little wry smile.
And staring down Anand, and he has played the move g6. This move has won him 2 games so far in this match. We flash ahead, we see that Anand had prepared something new for this game, but it didn't seem to be particularly effective. He played this passive move, Danny, knight to d5, offering all sorts of exchanges.
That's right, instead of going for an attack on Kasparov's king, he's offering to trade off into an endgame. We'll see the move in a moment. Knights into the center of the board to d5. Now look, Kasparov just exchanges queens, so we're just getting a mass exchange of pieces in the center of the board, which is not really the way to put pressure on the world champion.
And Kasparov continuing with all these exchanges, and then he played the move knight to e3, attacking both bishops, and Kasparov knew that he was in absolutely no danger, almost bored, saying, what kind of position is this? And Anand admitted that it was just a draw, and that effectively was sealing Anand's fate, Danny.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to come back from this situation, but Anand looked tired, and it was as though he was just taking a time out in this game today.
Well, Kasparov in the driver's seat with only 5 games to go. He has a 3-point lead, an almost insurmountable advantage at this level.
Well, after the game, Kasparov went backstage to the VIP room just to explain his thoughts about this incredible opening, the Dragon, that has brought him such success.
Well, enter the Dragon, an opening that is feared by even the top grandmasters in the world.
Well, this is a side variation of the highly complex Sicilian defense. It's denoted by this pawn move at the side of the board, g6, and the bishop coming out onto this long diagonal. That is the key to this opening. It's so powerful, so dangerous. It radiates right across the board, and white must always be so careful.
Well, Danny, the thing that makes this opening so exciting, though, is that white is also trying to take black's head off.
The king's castle on opposite wings, which means we're going to get a very tense fight. It's like a race. Who is going to break through? Now, this is the way that Kasparov recommended that Anand should have played. White throws the pawn forward on the right side, pawn to g4, initiating a charge with the pawns, trying to break open lines.
But this is what makes it such a deadly opening. White castles on the other side from black, and this way, both sides will be attacking on opposite sides. You see an exchange there in the middle, and white pointing at the right, but black is going after the left-hand side of the board.
So black's queen comes out to this very aggressive position, hitting the white pawn on a2. It has to advance, had to be protected. And now black swings a rook across to this open c-file. This is where black is generating his counterplay. On the files in front of white's king. It's very dangerous. But now, white advances on the right side of the board. That is really the only way to break through. Now, we saw the kind of move that Anand played was moving the knight into the center, which just forced these exchanges, and really the position is simplifying down to a draw. Kasparov said the only way, let's just move the pieces back for a moment. Kasparov said the only way to break through is to keep pushing with the pawns on the right-hand side of the board. You see the white pawn moving up there, and white is trying to break open the lines in front of black's king. Of course, black has counterplay on the left side of the board against white's king. It's just such a double-edged situation. Anything could happen, but Anand must try it if he's going to break through.
Well, Anand played a lot less aggressively, and as a result, the world champion was able to score an amazing 2.5 with the black pieces. Later, Kasparov commented on this fire-breathing opening variation that served him so well in this match.
If white plays castle and then white take on this position can happen if white moves order, and here if white plays queen b1, queen cannot go on a5 because of knight d5. That's why black plays queen c7, let's say g4, rook c8, h4, queen a5, a3, rook b8, and this is an important theoretical position. Here there are a few moves. They can play h5. There is a move queen g5. It's Ivanchuk's introduction. It looks very strong for white. But that's exactly the position. It's debating. I mean, there are many complicated lines in this position. But I played few games recently. For instance, with Sofia Polgar, won two very nice games. G4 and take. Castle. Queen a5, a3, rook c8. I mean h4, rook b8, h5, b5, h takes h6, b4 is bad for white. I mean this is a theoretical position, very complicated. I mean I wouldn't say more. I mean I spent some time, believe me, analyzing this. It's very complicated. But white should go for this. I mean this is the way to play dragon. You know, you have an open line, you should try to mate. I mean if you play knight d5, knight d5. That's not a move, just to. But that's a line, and here, I mean, black could be in grave danger immediately. You know, if black doesn't make right move, they can die immediately because everything is open and there are many threats. But that's a position. That's how white should play.
So Garry, are you prepared to state publicly that on Monday, given the chance, you'll play the dragon again?
No, I don't think that the World Championship match is the good place to make all sorts of bets that you eventually propose now, or kind of it's not also a place for brave statements. It's a place to go and win the title. Now, obviously, there are very good chances I will decide to play dragon again, because there are very good. No, there are good chances, and there are many, let's say, positive signs for choosing dragon again. And also, there is a famous advice given by Capablanca that he liked saying that I always play the openings that gave me good results, practical results, irrespective of the position that arose in the middle of the game. Now, the positions were not bad, but the results of that opening are even better. In fact, this opening completely changed the turn of this. Turned the table in this match, changed the character of the fight, and I'm very happy that I found such a good opening, preparing for this match. But again, it depends very much. Monday game depends on the results of tomorrow's game. And we shall see what is going to happen tomorrow before I'll make my choice what to play or not to play on Monday.
So the match all but decided in the last 3 games. Later, Kasparov commented on some speculation that Anand was given bad advice on how to play the match.
You could have 10 advisors, 100 advisors, 1 advisor, no advisors, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to make a decision, and that's good about chess. This is pure game of responsibility. You take full responsibility for any action, especially for accepting or declining draw offer. And he probably, in game 11, he lost a little bit of, orientation, and he was severely punished for it. Before this match, I played 164 games in the world for the World Championship title. 164 games. Now today, it was my 179th game. Now, that gives you some experience, And if you, as a professional player, I could analyze this experience, and I was ready to make some corrections in my, my strategy during the match, and I had some ideas prepared in my sleeve that I thought we would not expect, but I faced a very, strong opposition, very strong team that prepared my opponent, and it was not easy for me to find the right strategy. This is the most important thing in the match is not only result. This is a kind of tendency, and I felt it's changing because he spent much of his ammunition at just after game 9. In the first games, he was dominating the field. He played all sorts of new openings, thrown some of the new ideas, and he was running out of ammunition. And I felt now I'm coming back in the game. Okay, I lost 1 game, but first I had my great idea for game 10, and then I knew now after game 10 we're going to change completely the opening strategy. I think the problem is he wanted to take revenge. He wanted to go. It's too much. And okay, I made the same mistake when I played first match with Karpov. Now it probably happens. I was surprised that with so many advisors he was not advised just stop, and now let's do something. Let's reconsider the strategy. And again, it's probably your only experience that can tell you what's right, what's wrong. And I said he had many advisors, but I had 164 games for the World Championship title played before.
Well, game 16. Kasparov with the white pieces, Anand with the black pieces. And Danny, it's a tall order for Anand to come back in these last few games down 3 points.
It's true, but the closer Kasparov gets to the finishing tape, the more nervous, the more jittery he's going to become. So I think, actually, Anand has a chance to try and get back at Kasparov, at least to try and salvage some honor from this match.
Well, a difficult road ahead of him, needing 4.5 points out of 5 to unseat the champion. A big crowd was in attendance, seeing whether or not the challenger would be able to do it. And Kasparov playing the move e4 in this game.
Well, once he got into his stride in this match, Kasparov consistently opened with his pawn to e4. It heralds a really aggressive struggle in the opening.
And look at this move, c5, that Anand played. This is the first time he's played this move in this match.
Yeah, it's a little bit unusual. He's actually playing Kasparov's own opening against Kasparov. It's like a taste of his own medicine. It's a very unusual strategy.
Well, it also seems as if the Sicilian defense is a pretty sharp opening to play when he needs a win.
Very much so. So Anand, obviously not backing down. He's not going to coast in. He really wants to give Kasparov a good fight.
Well, Anand in this position normally played the knight to c6, but in this game he played a6, which is Kasparov's favorite move, and the champion seemed befuddled by this.
True, he's befuddled, but also slightly amused because Kasparov has been playing this move for, well, over 20 years. He has so much more experience than Anand, so that's a really surprising decision.
But he decided to play all the same moves that Anand did, now in his 15th move of the game, having a terrible time trying to figure out something new, and he played the move bishop to b6, attacking the queen.
So the queen attacked, it must drop back, but this is exactly the same as Anand played in one of the previous games in the match, but Anand in that case was white, so it's following this previous game exactly, the bishop just retreating all the way back into the center of the board.
Well, what can Anand possibly gain by this? After all, Kasparov knows this opening inside out.
Well, I think this is a very clever psychological ploy from Anand. He's using Kasparov's own opening. Now, will Kasparov really want to show some of his top secret analysis? He'd be refuting his own opening. So Kasparov will be thinking in the future, not just about this game. So he won't want to give away too many secrets, and indeed, he's just played a very solid line. He's not playing to try and refute the opening.
Well, obviously, there's no real contact between the two forces. There's this no man's land on the 5th rank, and this is not your typical Kasparov, who's normally hyper-aggressive and trying to prove something with the white pieces.
And he obviously doesn't feel too comfortable with the situation. It has really thrown him. You know, Kasparov is normally such a well-prepared player, and he obviously didn't expect this opening at all.
Well, Anand returning to the board, and Kasparov offered him a draw. Well, that has to be considered a success for Anand, playing with the black pieces, so he accepted the draw. But one has to wonder, with the match situation as it is, Danny, was that a wise decision?
Yeah, slightly surprising that Anand could have played on. It was a very balanced position, but he could have tried a little bit.
But with Kasparov needing only another half point to retain his title, the question was Anand just bowing out of this match?
Who offered the draw?
Him as always, yeah. I haven't offered any draws in this match. Just, he's offered all 15 or something, so we're keeping that straight.
It seems like neither of you have much energy at the moment. Would it be better if you could just resign the match and go home?
It's a loaded question. Might be tempted to take you up on it, but actually I think I might have one more shot at it, let's say.
Do you think you might have 4 more shots at it?
Well, let me have the first shot and then I'll worry about the second one. So.
What do you think about the Scheveningen variation? Have you changed your opinion about it after the game?
Well, I thought I'll show him how to play it, so because he had some difficulties in the 9th game. So.
Do you think there should be a rule that players cannot agree a draw in less than 40 moves?
Okay, I understand the last 2 games weren't exactly thrillers, but you know, you can't stipulate something like this. A lot of the Scotch draw, for instance, was a perfectly normal one and finished quite quickly, but you can't possibly just play rook e4, e5, e4, e5 for 27 moves. So, you know, I don't think that's very... I mean, you just have to face it. A draw is a legitimate result in chess, unlike other sports, and you just got to live with it.
In other sports, it's not possible just to, in the middle of battle, just to agree to draw and go home. What's your response to that?
I don't have a specific response to that. I mean, you've agreed draws and quickly. You've made quick draws. I made quick draws. We all made quick draws. You understand?
That's different in a match.
I understand, but you know, a draw is a legitimate result. I mean, like today, what could we do? After knight e4, the position is equal.
What do you plan to do after the World Chess Championship?
A, I'll worry about that in a couple of days, and B, you know, it's okay. Assuming I lose the match, then it's another 2-year thing with lots of qualification events and so on. It's just no point thinking about it now.
And in past few press conferences, Gary's been critical of your team, saying that perhaps they've destroyed your intuition. Do you have any comments about that?
Well, I mean, I don't think I should blame my team for this. I agree that my play after game 11 lacked some freshness in many instances, but okay. I mean, I really think I could use the experience in a world championship. Many stages which I simply didn't know what decision to take, to up the ante, to stay calm. The 11th game, for instance, I thought it'd be nice to sort of work myself back into shape by refusing a draw and just because I understand it's a drawn position. And I just decided, and then I missed this move rook c2. In a way, I don't know which is stranger, that he gives me a chance to be better in such a drawn ending, or that I miss it. But no, I really feel I made many mistakes due to inexperience, and well, next time around at least I'll do it differently.
Do you think that game 11 has been playing on your mind through the course of the match?
It was certainly an expensive error. I mean, you know, I didn't think about it, but maybe, you know, at some level it just bothers you. That's possible. But it's certainly very expensive, very childish error to make, because I defended so many so many bad positions early in the match. Not bad, but, you know, positions where you really have to find the best move and so on. And I did a good job, and then you just give him a point for free. And yeah, I mean, it was certainly not a pleasant experience.
Okay, thanks very much.
A casual game of chess takes place across the river from the World Trade Center in New York City. But inside, $1 million battle is being fought 107 floors up by the two best in the game. Reigning world champion Garry Kasparov and challenger Viswanathan Anand have taken the mind-bending tension to new heights. Two gladiators venture into their final week to decide who will be crowned the king of chess. Hello, I'm Maurice Ashley along with Grandmaster Danny King here in the stretch run of the 1995 Intel World Chess Championship. Welcome back to New York City, where even the World Chess Championship has made it to Broadway here on the Sony Jumbotron in Times Square. Well, world champion Garry Kasparov has a commanding lead. After the early draws, he seems to have come into his own. He's had no problem keeping his focus despite playing these championships in the electrifying atmosphere of New York City.
We're attracting a lot of media and a lot of great public interest, and that was my always, my permanent dream that once the World Championship match would be in the center of the public attention, not only the chess world but just world itself. And I think this match is making a big difference, and that's why I like New York even more.
But for Viswanathan Anand playing in his first World Championship, perhaps it hasn't been quite so easy. You know, he's not so used to this kind of media circus that he's involved in.
Well, the largest crowd of this match gathered in anticipation of Garry Kasparov retaining his title for the 5th consecutive time. Kasparov, on the other hand, felt that all was not finished.
I think he probably gave up his hopes to win the match, but still there are more games to go, and he's still very dangerous. And it's I hope I will show a little bit more aggressive attitude with white pieces. That's why there will be some games in this match.
Well, game 17. Anand with the white pieces, Kasparov with the black pieces. And despite what Kasparov said, it looked as if Anand really came for a fight today.
That's right. You know, he's been working very hard over the last couple of days. And this is really his last chance to have a go at Kasparov. He has the white pieces, and he's got to make the most of it.
Well, Kasparov has found himself in this situation before. In 1986, he lost 3 consecutive games, beginning with Game 17 against Anatoly Karpov.
Well, here he'd have to lose 4 games in a row to lose the title. So it's pretty unlikely, but he still looks very nervous today. Very nervous indeed. Anand opening with his pawn to e4.
Well, what about the challenger? He's got to feel pretty nervous too. After all, he's only defeated Kasparov once in 4 years, and now he's being asked to defeat him 4 times in a week.
Well, to a certain extent, I think the pressure is off Anand. You know, it's such a tall order. No one thinks he's going to do it. So he can play really with a free hand.
Well, Kasparov now playing the move d6, and they've begun with the Sicilian defense. And we jump ahead now to move 16. Anand playing the move a3, a very casual pawn move on the left side of the board.
This is actually a great move because it's saying to Kasparov, well, what are you actually doing in this position? Every move you make is actually going to compromise his position. It's a very clever move from Anand indeed.
And Kasparov spent 25 minutes studying this last move and finally played the move b5, but he obviously was not happy with the situation.
25 minutes, that's a lot of time. Both players have 40 moves to make in 2 hours. So that's a very large percentage of the time allotted to it.
And bishop takes f6, played by Anand, and Kasparov, thinking about this situation, captured on f6 with the pawn.
Well, that has shattered his pawn structure. Black's pawns scattered all over the place. But at least Black has some compensation in the form of the 2 bishops. The 2 bishops are a very potent team.
And Kasparov now defending his pawn on the d6 square, and Anand leaping into the d5 square with his knight.
Well, this is the big problem for Black when his pawns get shattered. There are many weak squares on the position, and that knight can't be budged by any of Kasparov's pawns. So Anand looks as though he's getting control of this position.
And Kasparov fighting back mightily, exchanging queens on the d2 square, and now Anand recapturing rook takes queen on d2, and it seemed as if Anand really had control of this position. Kasparov needing to find some counterplay, some way of fighting back.
Yeah, his pawns are shattered, but if he can get his bishops going, they'll slice across the board, causing Anand all kinds of trouble.
Well, if we jump ahead, we see Kasparov struggling mightily, trying to generate some kind of play, and he captured on f5, and his bishops had freer reign in this position, Danny.
It's true, but Anand has managed to coordinate his forces very well. Look at those rooks, doubled on the d file, and now the knights in the center of the board on superb squares. They can't be kicked away by any of Kasparov's pawns. And this last knight move in particular, attacking rook and bishop simultaneously, is a bit of a problem. And Kasparov must give back one of the bishops for the knight. He must exchange off bishop for knight, and so Anand looks like he's gaining control of the position.
Such a critical game for the challenger, needing to make the most of his chances here and just trying to remain calm in this position before capturing that bishop on d4, and he has played rook takes bishop.
Well, Anand's great advantage here is that his forces are so well coordinated. Look at the rooks in the center of the board, doubling up, protecting the knight. So a very powerful position indeed for Anand.
While Kasparov bringing his rook down to the 7th rank, his rook penetrating into the heart of Anand's position, but Anand quickly swatted that away by bringing his rook back and challenging Kasparov's rook.
Well, Kasparov thrashing around trying to find counterplay, but really this can be stopped very easily. The rook and the bishop attacking the pawn on c2, but Anand simply brings the rook back, covering that, and really Kasparov's counterattack has come to nothing. He's simply had to exchange off rooks, and then once again Anand has control.
And Kasparov now needing to stop the threat of knight e7 check, brought his king over to f8, and Anand bringing his king over to the center of the board.
Very important indeed. When you're in an endgame, you must bring your king closer to the center. They're not in any danger at all in an endgame when there are so few pieces, and kings can actually be very powerful pieces indeed, particularly when they're attacking the opponent's pawns.
Well, Kasparov feeling the pressure, Anand's piece is well posted in the middle of the board, and he felt compelled to capture that knight on d5.
So even after this exchange though, Anand has some advantage. The rook on a very active square in the center of the board, and look at Kasparov's pawns. They're all split. So Anand still in the driving seat here.
Trying to remain intense, and Anand bringing his rook over to b5, and suddenly his rook was going to penetrate into the b7 square, and Kasparov moved his king up to e6.
Well, this is a great idea from Anand. His rook so active, hassling Kasparov's pawns.
And Kasparov just giving away his pawn on a7, and suddenly Anand was up a pawn.
Well, this is a courageous decision for Kasparov. He'd rather play actively than defend his pawns, but normally a pawn in such an endgame is going to be enough to win the game. But Kasparov fighting back mightily. He's given away this pawn in order to get active counterplay against Anand's weak pawns. There we go, pushing the pawn forward, and he's hoping to get his own rook in to attack the pawns. But Kasparov does look worried here, and that is a great move from Anand. What he's doing is he's trying to get his rook back across to defend the pawns, and Kasparov had obviously overlooked this idea.
Feeling the heat was the world champion with not many options in this position, so he finally took the pawn on h4, and he had equalized the material situation on the board, the same number of pawns for both sides.
And that was a great move from Anand, checking the king, and now his rook can come back. And if you look at Kasparov's pawns, material might be equal, but his pawns are scattered all over the board. They can't protect each other, and it's just sinking in how difficult his position is. He's feeling uncomfortable.
Not happy at all with his situation was the champion, trying to figure out what to do, but for the moment his king in check, needing to move it somewhere, and that in and of itself was a difficult decision, and Kasparov finally backed it up to d7.
And now Anand's rook is attacked. He must move it, but he's got a fantastic square to go to. Now look at that rook. It's attacking the pawn on the left and the right. So Kasparov thrashing around, and it's here that Anand missed a great chance. He could have moved his pawn forward to b4. Now look at those pawns on the left. They're connected. Very powerful indeed. When they're connected, they work well together. But instead of that, he simply took the pawn off on the right straight away. It looked very tempting to do that, but it meant that his pawns on the left became split. Kasparov just exchanging pawns there, and notice the two pawns on the left now split. They can't protect each other. And although Anand is a pawn up, it's going to be very difficult to win this position.
With those weak pawns on the left side, Anand really couldn't make any headway. And if we jump ahead, we see that he's actually down a pawn. He decided to give away a couple of pawns in order to get some aggressive possibilities. But Danny, amazing how the world champion actually turned this game around.
Yeah, he's defended brilliantly here. And although Anand's king and pawn very active, very far advanced, he has just enough counterplay, Kasparov has just enough counterplay to hold the game.
And Anand, realizing that he had lost his chance, looking for something to do, but it was obvious as the champion left the room that it was very difficult pushing his pawn there to f6 to get anything going on this chessboard.
Now what the players are trying to do here is push their pawns to the 8th rank. If they can get a pawn there, it'll turn into a queen. But both sides have pawns marching down the board, so the position is roughly balanced, and Kasparov knows it. You can see him there glancing up at Anand as if to say, well, hey, come on, why are we bothering playing this position on? This is just a draw.
Well, dragging it on was Anand. A draw meant conceding the match. So he just played his king down to f8, and the crowd now in anticipation of this finish soon to come, and Kasparov moving his king up to the e6 square.
Very important bringing the king into the game, because the king can support the black pawn when it comes down the board. You notice Anand there pushing his pawn a square closer to the queening square, but Kasparov bringing his rook across to cover.
And now Anand getting out of the way, moving his king to g8, and Kasparov playing the move d4, and Anand got a queen. He got his pawn down to the other side and got a queen.
But Kasparov has it covered. He just took the queen with his rook. He's given up the rook, so now Anand has king and rook against 2 pawns. But Kasparov's pawn is so far advanced down the board that he can draw this game. He can do exactly the same. He can force Anand to give up his rook for the pawn.
And Anand giving Kasparov a smile there, and Kasparov returning it. And with nothing left to play for on the board, the pawn on d3, too dangerous. Anand captured the pawn. And after king takes rook, only the 2 kings would be remaining. An obvious draw, and he had done it. Garry Kasparov getting the half a point he needed in order to maintain his title as world champion once again.
How does it feel, Garry, to clinch the title?
You know, it's not the first title, it's not the second title, it's not even the third title, but I feel very, very happy. This match was very difficult, and I feel I did a very good job, and I feel extremely good. And also, I didn't play a proper World Championship match for 5 years at least. I think it's even 87 in Seville. That was a really tough match. In 1990, I was confident I was going to win, and having such a tremendous resistance from my opponent and such a tremendous preparation, I didn't know about this before the match, but I felt that it would be very, very difficult, and I think I was not scared, but I was not comfortable during the first week. In fact, the game 9 was not the worst day in this match, because at that time already I felt I'm playing chess. I'm working. My head was working. I spent probably 10 to 12 hours a day working, including, of course, the games I played, and I felt good that I was concentrating and I was not scared. But before the match, I couldn't feel that I'm, using all my potential, and that was a little bit scary.
Garry, a hearty congratulations on defending your title. You don't have to worry for a few more months or whatever it's going to be. How do you feel?
Happy, very happy, but also exhausted. It was a very difficult match, and I hope nobody will be misled by the amount of quick games that we played. It was unbelievable tension, and just before today's game, I had problems, to push myself into the game, because I didn't want to play. It's psychologically was over. I know probably you have just kind of signal inside you saying, fine, it's done, now you can relax, but you can't relax, and that's, that's a problem when you play such a sharp opening and you don't want to play. I mean, you could go straight into the troubles that I did, and just was saved by a miracle.
A miracle indeed. You had a 3-point lead, so you weren't certainly worried about the title, but obviously you didn't want to lose today's game. So how did you motivate yourself when you found out that you didn't want to play today's game?
I decided to tell myself that that's the last game of the match. And, if I want to be a champion, I should not lose it, Now, I have to finish this job today, and that helped me just to get out of trouble when I just went. The unpleasant result was very, very close.
Right. Essentially, you got yourselves into trouble a little bit earlier, but it had already, at this point, White has a nice advantage because he might bring his king and get some squares. But still, the move bishop takes d5 caught a surprise.
No, I think I think bishop takes d5 is the best move in this position because, if I try to, I have to push this knight because I have to bring my king to the center. This is clear, Without the king, I cannot survive. Now, if I push the knight, he comes on c3, and my rook now is not, is not well placed. Also, just simply goes king d2, then knight comes somewhere, then king goes on c3. I mean, I felt that it would be easier to defend the endgame just with rooks, because with rooks I always have, it will be more dynamic, because here it's strategically it's very dangerous. Just after rook exchange I can lose. I mean, it's too dangerous. I mean, White has complete domination of the black squares, and I think I made it was a correct judgment. I took here, king e7. Now he cannot go on king d2 because of c3 check, and then I just take the pawn. It's strangely enough, it's quite, a dynamic endgame. I mean, if White wants to win, I mean, they should be extremely active. And I expected, in fact, rook a5 here, but I think after a6, king d2, king e6, and then for instance, king d2, king e6, if king c3, then I go d5, king d4, and I just manage to attack this pawn. With rooks, I always have good chances. Now, Anand made a good move, rook b5, king e6, rook b7, and here comes a big surprise for myself. I mean, it's in the speed chess I would play a6 immediately, and after a6, I don't think White can make a serious progress. Now, if he goes on rook a7, then I go rook b6, I also attack the pawn. This is a weakness. If he goes king d2, then rook c5, and then I organize again. I play g5, but this pawn is still alive. I organize a counterplay, but he should waste more time by taking my pawn. And I think it's, the limited amount of material, guarantees black draw, because it's very similar to the game, but I don't think, black will have serious problems here. I mean, rook c5 was a kind of blackout, g5, and he made a great move, rook a8. Excuse me, yes. No. Rook a8, and after rook a8, black is finished. And it's just I completely missed the idea to bring rook on e4. And I found my only chance here. And in fact, I was surprised that Anand didn't play b4 here. I think after b4, the game would not last long. It's quite clear. Then king has, probably he also thought that rook takes h4 is winning. And no, in fact, thanks for two mistakes that we made. I made mistake, he made mistake. Now we reached a very interesting endgame, which looks completely winning for White after e4. And here I managed to make probably my best move in the game. It looks completely lost for black. If you take here, for instance, then he simply takes on h5. And if I play rook g3, rook f5, king e6, rook f4, f5, and now a5. And the rooks come on a4, and the pawn is, just advancing. Now, and I think that after f5, the position is very unclear, because suddenly black organizes counterplay. I have an idea to play f4 and take the pawn. Now, I think this
was bad.
Okay.
This was a clearly bad move. This is an offer of Grandmaster Bill Lombardi.
But I play f4 myself. I don't understand. What's the point? Still, just I take the pawn. I take the pawn. No, h2. I know it's not still clear for me. Maybe that's a correct way, but still, when your king comes, maybe I can. Yeah, probably. I don't know. f5 was I don't know. It requires it requires serious analysis because a5 is quite an obvious move. f4, a6, king c7. Now we reached a very interesting position here because it looks completely winning for white. Completely winning for white. But in fact, I'm not sure that is winning. King c3. Now black had to make a tough choice. One idea was to bring my rook on h8 and to push the pawn. Now I could play rook g8 here, but then it's unfortunately, he goes king d3, rook h8. He didn't have time for rook h7 because then I took pawn, and his king comes. Okay, we can reach position like that, But yeah, okay. But f pawn is, without these two pawns, it's draw. Without these two pawns, it would be draw because I just simply, a simple attack this rook, and then when comes here, I play rook f6, rook h6, rook f8, king a7, f7, rook f6. But with these two pawns, unfortunately, I'm lost because his king takes this pawn. Now, and I made a very, I think I made h4 was a good move. Okay, the only move. And after king d3, I think here comes a very important move, rook f2. Because after h3, rook b7 check, black would be lost, Then he just pushed my king. Rook f2 is a very important move. And his last chance to win this game was to play king e4. I think he had to sacrifice c pawn and just to, I don't know, we have to calculate what is won. Because after c4, I think I made another important move, rook a2. And now it's a funny, there's a move a7. Did you look at this move?
Oh, yes.
Okay, rook takes a7,
yes.
king a7,
yes.
And I'm saved by miracle, king e3,
yeah.
king b6, f4,
yeah.
and d5.
Yeah.
d5, otherwise I'm lost, that took some time to calculate.
We thought also the move c3 gave him chances. We thought the move c4 was wrong.
Yeah,
perhaps king
it's
e4 is the best move, but we thought that we
C3
definitely disagreed with the move c4.
Yeah, I still think this is too. When I exchange, it's very difficult for the black king is quite close now, and when we exchange this pawn to this pawn, I think it should be draw. Black still will have some difficulties, but I think the endgame 2 against 1 because black king is quite close, and this is a good pawn. Just it controls enough important squares, and despite the fact that he has two also good pawns, they're very good when rook. With rook and pawn against rook ending. But he cannot, cut my king, just in proper way. And
show us what line you were worried about after king e4.
I don't know. I didn't make a calculation. I would take a pawn here, but I don't know.
And I suppose you were afraid that he might make.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm not so sure. f4, maybe I play h3. Still, rook h7, h2. f5, rook f2. Yeah, no, draw, yes, should be. It's king f5, maybe by d pawn is also. Maybe it's already draw, because it's. I don't know. It's a very interesting rook's endgame. It's very limited material, but black had a very strangely enough this isolated pawn, h5 pawn and rook. They created such a tremendous mechanism of putting pressure on all white pieces, and I think c4 rook a2. I think this position should be draw. He could take pawn on h4 immediately, rook h7. But I just can't bring my king. Rook is on a5, and I think it's enough for me to. It's enough. No, that's definitely more complicated. He played king e4, rook a5, and here, for instance, after f4, I didn't call, but I probably even can play d5 check. Yeah, it's a draw, and then rook h6. And my rook is behind now, and the pawn is coming here. He tried. It's the last chance, but okay, it's black had enough defensive resources. That's the only mistake I could make, just to push the pawns without the king. But okay, I play king d7 just in time to bring my king back to the game, and that's d pawn. Managed to save the game. They managed to save.
This poor little lonely fellow with
Yeah.
a saving grace.
Yes. It's
I would just like to make a personal comment and say that obviously you're in a situation where two draws, one draw wins you the title, one draw wins you the $1 million. But it was very nice to see such a very good game to win the title. I mean, it justifies the victory which you've won so very well. And
Yeah, it's also, you're absolutely right. That's it's very important also for my feelings. Just to win to have a last game that secures my title. After such tremendous fight. Which was not easy, and I was under a lot of pressure, and that's that makes me a lot of happy. And just a quick draw. Yeah, exactly. It was a big fight, and as I said, just don't be misled by some short games we played in this match, because it's a lot of pressure, and we need, we don't have any timeouts anymore, and we play not 3 games a week, but 4 games a week, and that's, it increased the pace of the event, and if I remember all my matches with Karpov, after four weeks, we could play, let's say, 10 games or even 9 games, 9 to 11 games. Now we played already 17 games, and that's a hell of a difference. And but I think it's just now that 20 games is probably the right length of the match, just it gives enough time. It's not too long. 4 games a week, gives a good schedule, and it also gives enough time for players, to get into the fight and just to show the best they can.
One question more, and then with the audience. I can't help but think, back in the early 70s, you had Korchnoi and playing the dragon, but very, very, very few people played the dragon, and Fischer made a living out of just killing the dragon. I mean, and yet here we see that it actually won you the match. How on earth did you come to discover this opening? It must have been a very fortuitous discovery.
Preparing for the match, I realized that, from my previous experiences, that even with all the confidence in my Sicilian line that I've been playing for 20-something years, yes, I needed a second opening. I needed something that would be unexpected by my opponent, and I looked at several lines. I was analyzing a few lines. That was not only choice that I made for my preparation, but after all, I decided in favor of Dragon, because first, Vichy was not playing very convincingly against Dragon. Second, he did not have any in his team, any Dragon professional, and also Dragon is not the opening that you can easily prepare during the match, especially for the second half of the match. You can't play only by common sense. This is not the opening you play by common. It requires a very precise knowledge and deep preparation, and I knew that during the match it's very, very difficult to get yourself to analyze such a complicated lines. And also I knew that if Vichy had the chance to talk to one of my coaches from the previous matches, he wouldn't expect. Yes, the dragon was never analyzed as I analyzed a lot of crap probably, for the previous matches that I never played, but Dragon was not in the agenda for any previous match that I ever played for the World Championship title, and I needed probably this kind of shock in Game 9 to start playing this, because I wanted to play it early, but then I just decided let's keep it for the second half of the match. Because, as I said, this opening makes your opponent very nervous. Especially for the strategy that he adopted for this match. Dragon was a very precise choice, because that pushed him to a new land. Just it was very dark forest. Suddenly, instead of playing quiet lines, you have to play aggressively. And in fact, in a Dragon, he never. Today we could, I play rook e8. I could play b5, and probably today we would see an extremely complicated line that he prepared. Maybe just, in fact, after b5 he should play g4. That's eventually g4 and h5. I don't know. I decided to stick with a very. It's a solid, but not probably very not the best move. The position requires to play b5 and a5 and just to attack with black.
That's what I was trying to explain to my audience.
No. Rook e8. In fact, it's a complicated. Rook e8 is a prophylactic move, just preventing g4. But in fact, white also could make some prophylactic. h3 was an excellent move, just showing that black accomplished nothing, with rook e8 and queen a5. And okay, black went to the in theory endgame. That's what black deserved. But rook e8 was more it's coinciding with my mood today. Just to keep and just to defend and just to not to crack under the pressure. And that's why I prefer rook e8. But I mentioned, of course, b5 is a much better move. I know it.
We're back at the World Trade Center in New York City, where the 1995 Intel World Chess Championship continues with Game 18. And Danny, although Garry Kasparov has officially retained the title, they are still playing more games.
Well, that's right. I mean, these rules have always been in existence in the World Championship, that if it's a tie, then the champion simply retains the title. But here, they're playing on for the money. The prize fund, $1 million to the winner, $500,000 to the loser. So the first player to get to 10.5 will win the greater part. If it's tied at 10-10, then they will simply split the prize fund. So that's the reason they're playing on.
So Anand can try to pick Kasparov's pockets to a cool $250,000 if he were to somehow win the next 3 games.
It's going to be very tough, though, and you just wonder, has Anand got it in him to fight today, particularly as he's playing with the black pieces, and that's going to be very hard.
And after the 5-hour marathon they had in Game 17, things must be doubly difficult for Anand. Now Kasparov opening with the move, pawn to e4.
So Garry not really looking to get into a big fight today. All he needs is a draw to win the $1 million. So he's just going to be playing very solidly indeed, waiting for Anand to make all the progress, for Anand to make all the running in this game.
But Danny, after Kasparov played the move knight to f3 there, what are the odds of the world champion losing 3 games in a row and 2 with the white pieces?
Pretty slim, and you wonder just how hard Anand is going to try today.
Well, it's been a long match lasting almost 5 weeks, and the players must be dead tired.
Well, earlier in the match, Kasparov said this is a marathon and not a sprint, and I tell you, they look like they've been through a marathon in this match so far. Very tired, both players exhausted from the struggle.
So Kasparov just trying to settle himself. He knows a draw is all he needs, and he's probably hoping that Anand will give him the gift of a draw in this game, and he played the move bishop to f3 and offered Anand a draw.
This is actually a very clever moment for Kasparov to offer the draw, because the game is actually at a crossroads. Anand knows that if he plays on here, Kasparov could choose between a very safe continuation or a very aggressive continuation. And that puts a sense of doubt in the Indian's mind, and so he's more likely to accept the draw.
Well, Anand now sitting, mulling over this draw offer, and Kasparov trying to remain cool in this position, trying to act as if nothing phases him, but he must be burning up inside, hoping that Anand accepts this draw, because then it would be all over. And Anand did, and Kasparov has won the $1 million, and it's all over. Kasparov winning the World Championship by a score of 10.5 to 7.5, and Danny, it's been an amazing match.
So Garry Kasparov won in impressive style, and Danny, he really played some brilliant chess in this match.
He certainly did. I think my favorite game was the 10th. First of all, he sacrificed a pawn, then a rook, just to get through to Anand's king, and he won a beautiful game. It was a power performance. Then, the 14th game. That was critical. He knew that if Anand won, he'd be right back in the match. Kasparov had a lousy position, but he managed to turn it round in an amazing time scramble, and when he won that game, he knew the match was secure.
And at $500,000, I think that's not bad for coming second. Perhaps you'd like to say a few words, Wishy.
Well, I'll try and not make this too long. But I just basically wanted to thank the people who've been very supportive of me in this event. My parents, over there, Maurice and Nieves, who've been there for me throughout this year, and I'd like to thank Eddie as well for coming along. Then there are my 4 seconds, Yusupov, Ubilava, John Spielman's over here, and Patrick's over here. Really, without without a lot of help, it's difficult to go there and play very well. And it was really helpful having everybody here. And I hope you all had a lot of fun watching the event, especially today's nail-biting finish.
Thanks, Vishy. Can you come this side?
Completely right. No, that's why. That's more important.
It's more important to get the numbers right than the...
Garry, you look at this way? Got $1 million smile.
How can you evaluate it?
Can you keep it up a second, please?
Okay. Now, providing one of us doesn't drop it, the Intel World Championship trophy. Perhaps a few words.
Yep. 10 years ago, when I won my first title, I thought that that would be, the greatest pleasure in my life, and I would never be so happy and pleased while winning another match. I won a few matches since that, but now I'm really, really happy. And this match represents a lot for me. This is not just an ordinary victory, another one. It will have very special memories in my collection.
Well, despite the champion defending his title a 5th consecutive time to the delight of his many fans, experts wondered if his play lacked the vigor of a younger Kasparov.
Some people would say that after this match, Kasparov, the quality of Kasparov chess is not improving and even maybe diminishing, but it's more than enough. It was more than enough to defend my title. Now, maybe I'm not any more convincing as just a player who can win all events he plays, but I'm still quite convincing in defending my title. And I believe this amount of energy will be preserved for a few years at least.
Till the year 2000?
If I want to go, if I want to play, as I said, I have enough energy, enough motivation, and enough chess stamina to carry on my title until the end of the century.
Anyone?
Terrific. Thank you. That was great. Well done. End of the century. That's very nice.
Sorry, I made a mistake. I should say end of millennium.
So it was a memorable 5 weeks of struggle, an upstart challenger taking the lead, defending title holders showing what it takes to be a true champion.